Good morning, everyone. Let's give us a minute and can I get started? Okay, here we go. Good morning, everyone. Bonjour. Bienvenue tout le monde. Hello, everyone, and welcome. And it's great to be here this morning. Thank you so much for starting your day with us here at the beautiful, even if rainy day, at Ericsson Ottawa campus. My name is Jeanette Erikvist. I am the president of Ericsson Canada, and it's a pleasure to have you all settle in. I hope you got some Swedish fika. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our very special guest for today's announcement. So, it is my pleasure, of course, to introduce into the room, and we have everyone here now, the Right Honourable Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, the Minister of Innovation, Science and Economic Development in Canada, François-Philippe Champagne. We also have Ericsson President and CEO, Börje Ekholm, Ms. Jenna Sutz, MP for Carleton, Canada, and Ms. Ing. Welcome, all of you. Thank you all for being here, and today, of course, is a very special day. But first, I would like to take a moment before we get started to acknowledge that we are gathered here on the unceded Anishinaabe Algonquin territory. The peoples of the Anishinaabe Algonquin Nation have lived in this territory for millennia. Their culture and presence have nurtured and continue to nurture this land. Ericsson honors the people and the land of Anishinaabe Algonquin Nation. Ericsson honors also all First Nations, Inuit and Métis peoples, and their valuable past and present contributions to this land. So, of course, it's wonderful to be here today and to see so many of our academic, business and government partners, our Ericsson colleagues, and elected officials. Thank you all for coming to mark a very important day for Ericsson, for research and development in Canada, but also for the cities of Montreal and Ottawa. And thank you for your support, Prime Minister, Minister Champagne, Minister Ing, and Ms. Sutz and Kraftcliff. Thank you also to our Swedish friends who have joined us all the way coming here. And I want to highlight there's not just hockey, winter, beautiful lakes that is actually bringing our two beautiful countries, Canada and Sweden, together. But it's also about the incredible innovation, the research and development that we're going to hear more about here today, that has been going on for a long time between our two countries. This year is Ericsson Canada's 70th anniversary, and we've been a critical part of Canada's innovation tech system for all these years through research and development since our arriving here. Today, Ericsson plays a critical leadership role for 5G in Canada. We provide the backbone of Canada's 5G rollout. We work with all of the major carriers in the country as well as with the regional telecom players, making sure that we will bring the best of mobile wireless technologies to all Canadians. And we have a strong partnership with the Canadian post-secondary institutions. We have collaborated with over 20 universities for the past 10 years, ensuring that we contributed close to $25 million in and towards academic research. These partnerships, of course, are a great way for us to build tech talent in the Canadian pipeline, and will only continue to strengthen the tech system and ecosystem in Canada. But we're also committed to the Canadian industries to ensure that that they can lead on the world stage, deploying here, being first in Canada, and then we take it globally. On the research side, we have invested an average, and we do invest an average of $360 million a year. Since we came here, we have been investing over $7 billion in research and development here in Canada, and we are among the top 14 R&D spenders in the country. So today, we are extremely proud and excited to have an announcement and showcase the next chapter in research and development for Ericsson in Canada. So, without further ado, it's a great honor, obviously, to welcome to the stage the Right Honourable Prime Minister Justin Trudeau.
Thank you very much, Jeanette, for your introduction and for all your leadership here in Ericsson Canada. And thank you to Borge and everyone at Ericsson for welcoming us today. Thank you for coming to Canada for this big announcement. It really is an emphasis of how much Canada matters in building a strong future for Ericsson and for the whole world in telecommunications. Je suis très heureux d'être aussi accompagné par les ministres Champagne et Ing. Je veux saluer Jana Assad, notre député ici dans Canada Carleton. Je veux aussi saluer le maire Sutcliffe. Mark, so good to see you here as well. We're all here today to talk about what we're doing to make internet connection and other wireless services safer and faster. Whether it's to work, shop online, or connect with loved ones, we all use wireless technology every day. These technologies are essential to our economy, and they're essential to areas like healthcare and education. This is why it's so critical that Canada continues to be a global leader in next-generation networks. Today, I'm happy to announce that our government will partner with Ericsson Canada to advance research and development towards next-generation 5G and 6G networks. Down the line, this partnership will mean faster and more secure wireless services for people at home and in workplaces, and will also support research in other cutting-edge fields, including artificial intelligence and quantum technologies. Our investment will help create and reskill hundreds of jobs here in Ottawa and in Montreal. Aujourd'hui, on annonce un partenariat avec Ericsson Canada qui va créer des emplois et fournir de la formation pour les employés actuels dans les bureaux d'Ottawa et de Montréal d'Ericsson. Quand on dit qu'on bâtit une économie centrée sur le bien-être de tous les Canadiens, on parle de ce type de partenariat. On investit pour développer nos réseaux sans fil pour un avenir plus connecté et en même temps, on crée de bons emplois pour la classe moyenne. The next generation of 5G wireless technology is expected to add over $100 billion to Canada's economy by 2036. Each new job in the information and communications technology sector creates an additional 1.3 jobs in the broader Canadian economy. By investing in this new opportunity with Ericsson, we're helping deliver the technologies Canadians expect in a world of fast-paced change, and we're making our economy stronger. Again, I want to thank Ericsson Canada for being such an outstanding partner. We're excited to see the potential you'll bring forward with this project. And I want to take a direct moment to thank the great Canadian workers like the one behind me and the ones behind me and the ones that we met earlier on the tour. Canada is one of the most educated countries in the OECD. Quantum, AI, and other emerging technologies are Canadian strengths. And when we make announcements like this about global leading companies like Ericsson investing more in Canada, betting on Canada. Yes, it has to do with our trade ties around the world. Yes, it has to do with a strong research and innovation ecosystem across our universities and institutions. Yes, it has to do with quality of life, livable cities, access to natural resources, access to green energy as well. These are all things that matter for companies like Ericsson and so many others. But the one fundamental competitive advantage that we have in Canada is Canadians themselves. Highly educated, hardworking, ambitious, visionary, positive, creative, people who work hard to build a strong future for themselves and their families, to build strong communities, to build the future here in Canada. Now, you'll have seen over the past number of years a lot of announcements like this one. And yes, in every announcement like this one, the federal government does step up to help support these important investments that companies are making. But it's not about money. It's about seeing a place where companies like Ericsson can invest for the future, for the next 10 years, for the next 20 years, for the next half century. And the single most important deciding factor is, will there be great people to work in these jobs for the coming decades when we build it here? And the answer in Canada is always a resounding yes. Because of what we've been able to build, not just over the past 8 years as a government, but what Canadians have been able to build over the past generations. An ambitious, positive, forward-thinking country, ready to tackle those challenges, and not just because our government is that way, but especially because Canadians are that way. And I can't think of a better place to point that out than right here in Canada, a suburb of Ottawa that has developed itself into one of the strongest tech clusters in the country, and indeed one of the strongest tech clusters in the world. The abilities we have, particularly around telecommunications and connectivity here, are why great companies continue to come and invest, not just in this place, but in the people who live here. And that's the story writ large of Canada. And that's why we're so excited to be able to be part of this today and part of the positive future that we are all building together. Companies like Ericsson keep investing in Canada because they know that we are reliable suppliers of the talent and vision they're looking for. So together, let's continue to build an economy that works for all Canadians and a stronger future. Merci beaucoup. Je suis très heureux maintenant de passer la parole à François-Philippe Champagne. Monsieur le ministre.
Bonjour tout le monde. I like when I was watching you, Prime Minister, but also like imagine what's possible. I mean, if there was a moment which you could be proud of, is really this one. Merci tout le monde d'être là. Et puis, Monsieur le Premier ministre, j'aimerais vous remercier parce que vous l'avez dit, c'est pas par chance qu'on est ici. C'est grâce à votre vision d'avoir donné au Canada les moyens de ses ambitions et d'avoir développé, hier j'en parlais avec le président d'Ericsson au niveau global, un leader, de devenir un leader dans la transformation du numérique, que ce soit dans l'intelligence artificielle, que ce soit dans le quantique, que ce soit en cybersécurité. So Prime Minister, it's not by chance we're here. It's really thanks to your vision to put Canada at the forefront. And you said something, and Borge, I hope you'll excuse me to relate part of our discussion, but you could not have said it better, Prime Minister, than talent is the first thing that Borge yesterday mentioned. Why is Ericsson coming to Canada? It's because of you. That's the reality. And I want to thank, obviously, my dear friend and colleague, Minister Ng. We're almost inseparable. You know, everything we do is together. And I just want to say thank you for working. We're working in hand, all of you, to bring investments in Canada. And I think Canadian companies owe you a great deal to have opened up market now to more than 1.5 billion consumers around the world on a preferential basis. And that is also a factor to attract significant investments like the one this morning. To my colleague, Jenna, such a pleasure to see you again. It seems like every time we're together, it's bigger and better. You know, I mean, every time the Prime Minister was saying it, every time we come to Canada, Mayor, I'm coming to you. But you know, there's good things happening, and the ecosystem keeps growing. And one of the things we're talking about, talent, ecosystem, sustainability, what attracts people to Canada. And I'm saying I'm very proud that we can do that. And I want to thank you for your support along the way. You've been a champion in this city and this district even to bring investments, and I think we see the result of all your work. Mayor, that looks like a $500 million smile there that I see. You know, it's great. Yeah. It's great to be with you, Mayor, with some, when I was looking, 2,000 tech firms in Ottawa, employing over, 75,000 people and tech workers, and adding on with what we announced today. I would say Ottawa is well placed in the economy of the 21st century, but also to benefit from the digital economy. The Prime Minister was saying this is a series of announcement we've been doing together, but I can say, Mayor, things look very, very good for the city of Ottawa. Janet, thank you for being the Canadian champion. I was so proud to hear you, 70 years of business in Canada, and I must say to everyone listening and watching at home, Janet has been the cornerstone to make sure that we'd get that investment in Canada. You always need a champion inside a global company, and you have been that champion on behalf of Canada. So thank you on behalf of everyone. You've carried a voice. You've carried a voice. Borje, now I'm going to talk a bit more personal. Welcome to Silicon Valley North. As you know, that's how they call this place here. And actually, I went back to the very first text message you and I exchanged, and it was on January 13th. And I must say, 2022, it was really thanks to your personal involvement, to your vision, your support, and leadership that we really are celebrating a very ambitious project. And I want to say thank you. I know it's a big day for you because not only you have this announcement, but I think it's the Investor Day for Ericsson. So for you to join us here in Canada, I think it's a big testament to how you see Canada in the profile of Ericsson globally. I always say to Canadians, you always have a choice to wherever you want to go. And you chose Canada and you chose to be with us today. So on behalf of all of us, and I would say the whole community, thank you for taking the trip and being such a champion to Canada. I was saying to Borje, there's so much we can do with the Nordic countries, actually, in terms of values, in terms of what we hold dear, and that's a good example that we're going to be working on. Frederick, what can I say? I met you last spring in Stockholm, and I told you, why don't you double down on Canada? Well, you delivered. Yeah, you delivered. I mean, let's say, I have to recognize you delivered. I don't know when I'm going to see you next, but, you know, I'm going to think about what more we could do. But you've really delivered, and I want to say thank you because we're going to be building the next generation of networks, and that's a big thing, and I'm going to explain, try to bring that simple, as we did yesterday, Borge, to Canadians, why this matter actually. And, of course, I want to say a special thanks, but I think the Prime Minister said it, to the whole team of Ericsson, 3,000 people which are located in Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver, and obviously in Ottawa. It's really thanks to your passion, it's thanks to your expertise, it's thanks to your excellence that we can have these investments. It all starts with you, and I can assure you that's exactly what Borge said yesterday when we were together, is that it's thanks to you that we can be today. So again, the Prime Minister acknowledged you, but I just want to say you're a real champion. It's really easy to be the ambassador of excellence when you have people like you, you know, and to do that. Like the Prime Minister said, it's a big day. Today's a big day. Today is a clear demonstration that Canada and our skilled tech workers will play a big role in developing the technologies of the future and right here in Canada. Mais surtout, c'est le signe que des chefs de file mondiaux comme Ericsson choisissent de s'établir au Canada et de collaborer encore plus activement avec nous dans les domaines de ce qu'on dit du 5G et du 6G. Les Canadiens ne connaissent pas trop le monde nécessairement des technologies, mais se demandent peut-être pourquoi on parle de 5G et 6G au Canada. Well, just look around you, trying to make that very concrete for Canadians. Who doesn't carry a smartphone? Who doesn't have a tablet, a laptop that you use regularly, or even sometimes both of them? Well, these devices are omnipresent as they are convenient in our lives. But I'll tell you something, these great technologies that we can all agree are making our life more easy in many ways. At the same time, today's mobile networks are reaching capacity. And this can result, believe it or not, in telecommunications traffic jams, as we call them in the industry. Well, 5G and 6G that we're going to be developing with Ericsson will be designed to ease that traffic. Is that in some cities in the world you go today, we heard that from our friend of Ericsson, you can go and the network would be patchy because there's too many people coming on the network. So basically what we're developing here is about making sure that the network will be more resilient. And we all know whether we're using this device for work, whether because we go to school, whether because we commute or just connect with loved ones, we want them to work well, but I would say we want them to work all the time as well. So I'm also speaking for myself, since my love for texting, I think, is well known by many of you by now. I want to make sure this works. Mais grâce à ces technologies, des milliards d'appareils, parce qu'on parle évidemment, quand on parle de 5G, c'est tous les appareils connectés à travers le monde, vont pouvoir être branchés plus facilement, plus rapidement et certainement plus sécuritairement. ce qui est un enjeu comme on voit dans les jours qu'on a vus précédemment. C'est pourquoi la 5G et la 6G des partenaires comme Ericsson sont si importants pour assurer que le Canada soit le leader mondial des nouvelles technologies numériques. So to that end, it's quite amazing today that we can finally announce our new partnership, about a year of exchanging back and forth and saying the scope of the project and the ambitions you brought, which will establish Canada as one of Ericsson's global leading R&D center. And again, I want to say to people, the Prime Minister said it, you don't attract Ericsson here in Canada with money. They're going to be here for at least the next 70 years. You attract them with people, with talent, with vision, with the ecosystem we've built. And the project by Ericsson means that an investment of almost $500 million, hundreds of new jobs, which will be created both in Ottawa and in Montreal. But also, very importantly, we're going to be reskilling a number of people because we're moving to the next generation of networks so that we make sure that all the workers of Ericsson will be able to thrive in this new economy. So it's a big win for tech workers. I would say, Mayor, it's a big win for Ottawa. It's a big win for Montreal. But it's also a big win for Canada's innovation ecosystem that we're building. Mais surtout, cela veut dire que les Canadiens pourront avoir accès à des réseaux qui sont plus robustes, plus sûrs et plus fiables. Donc, c'est un vote de confiance énorme envers le Canada. C'est un vote de confiance aussi dans tous nos employés, tous les travailleurs du secteur de la technologie. Mais c'est aussi un vote de confiance, on en parlait hier soir, dans l'écosystème qu'on a bâti de l'intelligence artificielle, du quantique et aussi de la cybersécurité. So, in conclusion, I would say let's seize the moment, let's be ambitious, and let's make sure that we design and build the most advanced products and technology right here in Canada. With that, I have the immense pleasure to introduce you the Global CEO of Ericsson, which has made the trip to be with us today to celebrate Canada, to celebrate you, and to celebrate the future together. Boyer, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Minister Champagne. Well, our text messages will be legendary. Prime Minister, distinguished guests, it's simply great to be here. Warm welcome to all of you, and I really say that not on behalf of myself, much more on behalf of all the colleagues here in Canada. Because I think your presence means a lot to us. So that you come, show that you think this is important. For us, this is important, for sure, I can guarantee you. So, as I understand, the coutume is you have to speak in French, so I'll practice my French as well. C'est un plaisir pour moi d'être ici à Ottawa pour annoncer nos bonnes nouvelles. Ah oui, je parle un peu français, pas petit peu. Je comprends mieux que je parle. So it's my pleasure to be here, and I really want to thank you, Prime Minister, for coming. Minister Champagne, clearly an outstanding relationship. Minister Ng, Ms. Suds, as well as Mayor Sutcliffe. Thank you for joining us at one of our core research sites at Ericsson here in Ottawa. So as a Swede, I recognize I have some big shoes to fill coming here to Canada. Yeah, I did grow up playing hockey. But I will just confess, my talent is nowhere near my fellow countryman, Daniel Alfredsson, right, the Senator's Hall of Famer. But I still think his success, in a way, illustrates a close bond and close values that actually exist between Sweden and Canada. So I think it's an illustration of why we're here as well. But on a more personal note, I must say, you know, coming to Canada, it's one of the few countries around the world that can pronounce my name. And it's, of course, another hockey player, the late Börje Salming, who played in Toronto Maple Leafs for many, many years. So it's kind of it's a bit of homecoming for me. Today, Canada is home of a major R&D effort in Ericsson. And I often get the question, and I think Prime Minister and Mr. Champagne, you've already touched on it, why are we actually here? Well, it starts with what matters. And this is not about a 5-year investment. I know when we talk about what can Canada support, it's kind of a 5-year. But that is not what we look at. We look at a long-term sustainable investment in Canada. And then, you know, money is actually not part of the criteria. Hate to say it. It's not unimportant. We come back to that, but it's not the criteria. The criteria is back to where both of you touched upon. It's the talent. You see a selection here, but we have many talent in Ottawa, Montreal, in our research sites here in Canada. And that's what we invest in. And I think the government of Canada has done a number of things. It's an open society. It's well known for that. You have open immigration policies, but you also have a strong commitment to education. Well-educated people, open society. That creates an entrepreneurship, innovativeness that allows us to develop world-leading solutions here in Canada. And that's why we're here. And that should not be forgotten, because that's really the heart of this matter. So I have only one ask, actually: continue this policy. Because that ensures a long-term success, I think, for Ericsson in Canada, but also for Canada, as a matter of fact. Then there is another part which I think is important. It's the values, and I started with that with the hockey. And I think these kind of value similarities between Canada and Sweden are important for us to be here as well. You know, it's all about the culture in a company. I think it's about the culture in a country. So it's very, very similar, and I think makes it easier to work together. You also have built ecosystems. We're in Encore, and that drives the creation of, it's everything around. And we create jobs, of course, at Ericsson, but it's all we do around that's more important, as a matter of fact. So for us, you know, being here is critical, but I can't stop there. I just have to say, Minister Champagne, your personal involvement makes a big difference as well. And when we recognize that government plays a role in business, and that interaction is critical. And your support was actually instrumental in getting to where we are. So a big thank you for that. Then I would be remiss if I don't touch on one thing, which is, I think Canada figured out sustainability a bit ahead of other countries. I like to interpret it in the Ericsson way. So you made a commitment to sustainability. Then we said that is about digitalization in reality, because they go together. But talking about digitalization doesn't create any excitement. But if you talk about sustainability, you get digitalization kind of free of charge. And that's the way we think about it. Because in reality, the ICT industry is about 1.4% of global greenhouse gas emissions. But we can lower total greenhouse gases by 15%, leveraging digital technologies. So actually, that gets us a long way on the journey towards a sustainable planet. And of course, we have an obligation to invest in energy efficiency, in better solutions, better capacity. So as I mentioned during our tour, 5G, with the leverage of new frequency bands, allows 10 times the capacity compared to 4G and 30% lower energy consumption. It's actually migrating over to 5G. It's going to be critical from a sustainability point as well. And I can see that all our customers here in Canada makes very strong commitments to net zero across their scopes. So I think that's actually very important. But again, I just want to say a big thank you, big compliment to the Government of Canada, leading on sustainability. Keep that up as well. But keep the policies on education, on being an open society, bringing people in to Canada is actually something very, very good. It's a great place to be here. It's always nice to come to Canada. COVID stopped me coming to Canada for a long time. But as a matter of fact, I think now we're back to business as usual. And now we'll get building the momentum for the future. So I'm very excited. We're here to imagine possible together. And technology is a force for good. So a big thank you. Merci beaucoup. It's great to be here, and it's now my pleasure to introduce the Member of the Parliament for Canada, Canada Carleton, right? Should be correct here, Ms. Jenna Suds.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Borje, and thank you, Jeanette, and everyone here at Ericsson for hosting us today. Good morning, everyone. Bonjour tout le monde. I would like as well to just take a moment to acknowledge that we are gathered on the unceded, unsurrendered territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people. I'm thrilled to be here as the Member of Parliament for Canada Carleton. I always love having the opportunity to have the Prime Minister, my colleagues here, and gather here in our amazing technology community. There are so many incredible businesses, talent, and innovation that is developed right here in Canada. So thank you again for having us here today. Here, as we stand here at our Ericsson, we are in the midst of the Canada North Technology Park, Canada's largest technology park, as was referenced, sometimes referred to as Silicon Valley North. And as we're witnessing with today's announcement, we continue to see incredible growth, innovation, and unbelievable talent that call this community home. It is that talent and expertise that is just second to none here in Canada and in Ottawa, and our government is here and committed to continuing to support you. In fact, today's announcement is not the first time that we've shared the stage with Ericsson here in Canada. Back in March, we partnered to open the Quantum Research Hub in Montreal, and in October announced a joint research initiative that aims to use AI to reduce the energy consumption of 5G networks as we talk about that sustainability piece. So today's announcement builds on an important partnership. Cutting-edge development of next-generation networks is happening here and throughout this technology park and throughout our country. And this has helped us attract global players, and I'm sure it is part of the reason why Ericsson is here and continues to invest and grow here. That, of course, coupled with that incredible talent that we all talked about this morning. So to you, to the incredible talent behind me, everyone here at Ericsson, thank you for your hard work, and congratulations again on this exciting new endeavor. And with that, it is now my great pleasure to introduce the Mayor of Ottawa, Mayor Sutcliffe.
Thank you, Jenna. I do have a big smile on my face today. This is exciting news. Bonjour tout le monde. C'est vraiment un plaisir d'être avec vous ce matin. Au nom du conseil municipal, au nom de la ville d'Ottawa, je suis très heureux d'être ici avec le Premier ministre, avec ministre Champagne, avec ministre Ng. And I want to welcome all of you to Canada, to Ottawa, for this very, very important announcement. And I want to say to the Prime Minister and to Minister Champagne, Minister Ng, your government has been a great partner for our city in building our technology community, and we are very grateful for that. So thank you for your leadership on that. And to the leadership team at Ericsson, you've been a great partner and a terrific leader in our city, so thank you for choosing Ottawa again and again. We really appreciate it. Merci beaucoup. This is a huge announcement for Ottawa. There's no question about it, and this builds on our reputation as a world-class technology hub that attracts the best talent and attracts high-paying jobs to a growing segment of our economy. This is a vote of confidence in our city and in our talent, so I'm very excited about it. Ottawa is indeed, as many people have already said, a tech powerhouse, and we're thrilled that Ericsson is making such a significant investment here. The Canada North Technology Park, as my colleague on Municipal Council, Cathy Curry, always reminds me, Kathy, great to have you here. The Canada North Technology Park has the highest concentration of technology companies in Canada and is home to 33,000 employees. So this is a big step forward for our city, for our tech community, as we further build our economy, as we create more jobs, and as we continue to be a home for the best technology companies in Canada and indeed in the world. Ericsson is investing heavily in Canada to ensure that our 5G network infrastructure is ready, and so this is a signal of confidence for a global company to choose to invest in Ottawa. And it's a renewed commitment to Ottawa for which we are incredibly grateful. So we have a lot to be excited about as a city. This is incredibly important for our tech ecosystem, for our talent in Ottawa. We're thankful for all of the learning opportunities that this creates, the mentorship, the growth of our talent, for the employment opportunities. We have some great champions for the tech sector here in Ottawa, Kathy Curry, Jenna Suds. We're grateful for your support and leadership. We have a great partner in the federal government, and we have great companies like Ericsson who are investing heavily in our community. So I believe in Canada and in Ottawa, the best is yet to come. Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much. And I'll now hand it back to Jeanette.
So thank you for your support, Mayor Sutcliffe, but thank you all for those kind words that have been shared here. And on behalf of all of the over 3,000 employees for Ericsson here in Canada, thank you for the fantastic collaboration. I mean, we've talked about text messaging, but it's been a long journey. Obviously, we've been here for 70 years. We're looking forward for the next long journey, obviously, here in Canada. So thank you again. With that, it is now my pleasure to kick off the question and answer period. So I would like to re-invite a couple of our guests here. So please, the Right Honourable the Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. We have Minister Champagne. Please go ahead. And as well, Börje Ekholm, our CEO for Ericsson. Please come back.
Merci tout le monde. Merci à nos orateurs. Thank you everyone. We have 20 minutes for questions from media. Nous avons 20 minutes pour la question des médias. One question, one follow-up, une question, une suivi. Et on va commencer avec TVA Nouvelles.
Bonjour, Monsieur le Premier ministre. Depuis quelques heures, Twitter désigne la CBC comme un média financé par le gouvernement. Ça fait suite à une demande de M. Poilievre, selon qui la CBC fait de la propagande de votre gouvernement. J'aimerais savoir ce que vous pensez de la décision de Twitter.
Ben, je pense que le choix que le Parti conservateur du Canada a fait de s'attaquer aux journalistes, particulièrement de s'attaquer aux médias locaux. On sait que Radio-Canada et CBC sont présents à travers le pays dans des petites communautés, des petites villes, des régions qui sont moins desservies par d'autres institutions de nouvelles. Et je pense que c'est vraiment désolant de voir un parti politique s'attaquer aux médias indépendants. Je veux aussi souligner que M. Poilievre prétend qu'il peut s'attaquer à la CBC sans aussi s'attaquer à Radio-Canada. C'est entièrement faux. On ne peut pas faire confiance aux conservateurs quand vient le temps qui s'attaquent régulièrement à la culture, à l'identité, au journalisme indépendant de qualité, entre autres local. Et je pense que ça illustre aussi beaucoup de voir que le Parti conservateur a choisi de s'attaquer à une institution importante pour bien des Canadiens, mais a choisi de le faire en courant les voir les milliardaires des géants du Web aux États-Unis. Je ne sais pas, pour moi, ça souligne un désalignement de valeurs et un manque de compréhension d'à quel point les Canadiens sont fiers de nos institutions et n'aiment pas qu'on aille demander à des milliardaires américains de venir nous aider à s'attaquer, les aider à s'attaquer à nos institutions. I think it says a lot about the Conservative Party of Canada. That they're choosing to constantly attack independent media organizations journalists who are working hard to keep Canadians informed and support our democracies. CBC Radio-Canada serves right across the country, delivers local news and local content in many regions of the country that, yes, has been challenged over the past years, but the idea of adding to that challenges and laying on by attacking this Canadian institution, attacking the culture and local content that is so important to so many Canadians, really indicates the values and the approach that Mr. Poilievre is putting forward. And I think it is telling that in order to attack this institution that is important for many, many Canadians, he runs to American billionaires, the tech giants that they continue to defend in committee and in their approach on our legislation to make tech giants pay their fair share. Conservatives are always there to defend them. So when they're trying to attack a foundational Canadian institution, the fact that he has to run to American billionaires for support to attack Canadians says a lot about Mr. Poilievre and his values.
Au sujet des menaces de grève dans la fonction publique, l'Alliance de la fonction publique vient d'annoncer qu'à défaut d'une entente demain soir, il y aura grève générale mercredi matin. Il réclame une augmentation de salaire de 13,5% sur 3 ans. Qu'est-ce que vous dites aux Canadiens qui risquent d'être confrontés à de sérieuses perturbations de services, à l'immigration, passeport et autres?
Tout d'abord, on reconnaît que les augmentations du coût de la vie ont été difficiles pour énormément de Canadiens au cours des dernières années. La pandémie a été extrêmement difficile aussi. Et c'est justement la fonction publique fédérale qui a été là pour livrer, la PCU, qui a été là pour livrer l'aide aux petites entreprises, qui a été là pour aider les Canadiens à passer à travers de cette pandémie. Mais nous savons en même temps que l'inflation est en train de baisser. On est en train de revoir une bonne croissance dans notre économie, malgré les défis qui viennent dans l'économie mondiale. Mais à ce niveau-là, on va continuer, comme on le fait depuis bien des semaines, de travailler de bonne foi à la table de négociation. Et on espère pouvoir trouver une solution qui va fonctionner et pour la fonction publique et pour les contribuables quand on va résoudre ces défis pour les années à venir. I think it's important to recognize that the cost of living has been a challenge for many, many Canadians over the past year, over the past years. We also know that the pandemic was extremely difficult, and it was the federal public service that stepped up in heroic ways, whether it was delivering the CERB, whether it was delivering support to small businesses, whether it was delivering the public health supports that were there to help the provinces. A lot of people worked very, very hard through difficult situations. There's good news that inflation is coming down. All the experts predict that it'll be down to much more manageable levels by this summer. But at the same time, we recognize that we need to make sure that we're properly supporting those who work in our public service. That's why conversations have been ongoing at the bargaining table for weeks now. There have been constructive advances and offers, and we're very hopeful that we're going to be able to resolve this. But it's at the bargaining table that these things happen, and we will continue to be there in good faith and work on trying to resolve this for all Canadians.
Thank you. Next question.
Hi, my question is actually for Mr. Ekholm first.
Of course.
David Reevely from The Logic. Mr. Trudeau and Mr. Champagne said that you don't get Ericsson to Canada with money, but you said it's a little bit about the money. Can you explain what the gap is that the money is filling between what Canada can offer without the money and what the money gets you?
We're still negotiating, so that's why I need to keep them at the table, right? No, but it's not about the money to make the decision to be in Canada. That is genuinely true. It's about the talent base, because if we don't have the talent base, we're not going to have a long term. And we're not going to make a commitment that's going to last 10, 20, 30, 70 years based on something you get at the outset. Instead, you base it on the fundamental factors of the country. And that's why talent matters the most. Culture matters, actually plays a big role. And it plays a big role the way you can cooperate with the government. That's really what matters. And that's why we make the commitment now to Canada to actually invest in Canada, because we believe in the future of the country, right? And everybody always wants to get down to, but there is a dollar somewhere. You know, it's I often say, you know, don't read too much between the lines. There is nothing there. And that applies here as well. It's really what's been done to, and I think this is a long-term commitment Canada has as well to education, to actually creating the ecosystems, to opening up the country for immigration. And you will see, we have a lot of people coming globally, wanting to come to Canada as well. That's why this is a great site for us.
My follow-up is for whichever of the politicians wants to take it. While you've been speaking, I got a statement from the Council of Canadian Innovators, and they say that subsidizing a large foreign corporation is exactly the wrong mindset for achieving meaningful growth in the innovation economy. They want action on keeping IP made in Canada, and supporting smaller innovators. Why is this right, and the people who are supporting the scale-ups and startups wrong?
I actually don't think it's a choice. I think we have to show that we are both investing in Canadian innovators and support for extraordinary small startups that are creating great solutions, and we have to invest in the ecosystem. You asked about the money we're putting forward as a federal government. There is no country in the world that would have offered 2 or 3 times as much as our final number will be to get the kind of R&D investment over the long term that Ericsson is making in Canada right now. Their decision is not about, well, who's going to give me the best money, the best amount of money and amount of corporate subsidies in order to come here. But they do want to know that we are committed. That we are committed to this community, that we're committed to the workers in Canada Carleton and indeed across the country, that we're willing to put some skin in the game, and that's why there will be money on the table from Canada, because quite frankly, confident countries invest in themselves, invest in their workers, invest in their future, and that's what we're doing. But if we want to have those great innovative startups succeed, if we want to create those opportunities for Canada to continue to lead in the world, we have to both be working with global leaders like Ericsson, who are delivering to the world. We also have to have Ericsson train up all these folks who at one point, maybe a few years from now, will spin off and create their own startup with all the great training and learning they have. No proprietary information, of course, but we are creating an ecosystem here in Canada and right across the country where people come out of university or research institutions, get that practical, world-leading expertise and stay and continue to build this global company with a larger footprint in Canada, or choose to move on in a decade or so to start up their own entrepreneurship. That's the ecosystem that we're building in Canada. So anyone who says that it's either or doesn't understand the role and even the responsibility that Canadians can play in the creation of solutions that the world desperately needs.
Bonjour, M. Trudeau, Louis Blouin de Radio-Canada. Pour éliminer ce climat de suspicion autour de la Fondation Pierre-Éliott Trudeau, ce climat de politisation, est-ce que votre frère Alexandre devrait se retirer temporairement de son rôle de membre de la succession? Et par ailleurs, est-ce que la Fondation devrait changer de nom pour éviter ce genre de turbulence dans l'avenir? Qu'est-ce que vous pensez de ces deux idées-là?
Tout d'abord, ça fait 10 ans que je n'ai aucun engagement direct ou indirect avec la Fondation. Et c'est des questions pour mon frère, c'est des questions pour la Fondation Trudeau. Il y a des gens extraordinaires là-bas qui sont en train de réfléchir à comment continuer le travail important que fait la Fondation qui porte le nom de mon père, la Fondation Pierre-Éliott Trudeau. Mais par rapport à mon rôle là-dedans, je n'en ai aucun.
J'aimerais vous entendre sur votre idée d'un registre de l'influence étrangère. Il y a un de vos députés qui parraine une pétition qui s'y oppose, disant que ça pourrait stigmatiser certaines communautés. Comment vous faites pour éviter que ce soit ça le résultat? Puis est-ce que vous êtes prêt à reconsidérer l'idée tout simplement? Bien,
quand j'ai annoncé qu'on allait aller de l'avant avec des consultations sur le registre pour contrer l'influence étrangère, j'ai souligné dans cette conférence de presse qu'on sait que d'identifier des gens et de créer un registre sur les gens au Canada selon leur identité ethnique ou leurs origines porte des risques. Et on a eu des malheurs dans le passé, qu'on parle de l'emprisonnement d'Italiens ou de Japonais ou d'autres pendant les guerres mondiales, qu'on ne doit pas oublier. C'est pour ça que, oui, on va aller de l'avant avec des outils pour protéger nos institutions, nos politiciens, nos gens d'affaires de l'influence étrangère néfaste, mais on est en train de consulter directement avec des communautés à travers le pays, des communautés qui pourraient être vulnérables à cause de ces registres pour ne pas répéter les erreurs du passé. Alors, je souligne que ce que notre député est en train de faire pour souligner ces préoccupations-là ne sont pas juste des préoccupations que lui ou une communauté a, mais que nous partageons en tant que gouvernement, et c'est pour ça que nous prenons si au sérieux la responsabilité de consulter avec toutes les communautés à travers le pays et de trouver ce bon équilibre, d'avoir un outil pour nous protéger, sans mettre à risque des gens qui, on le sait, sont plus souvent cibles d'influence étrangère que d'autres. As I've said many times, it's been 10 years now that I've had no direct or indirect involvement with the Trudeau Foundation. There are many reflections that they are having right now, I'm sure, about how to move forward in the right way to continue the important work done at the Pierre-Éliott Trudeau Foundation, but they are not questions for me. In regards to the Foreign Influence Registry, when I announced that we were going to be moving forward on this, I highlighted that Canada has had difficult historical experiences that we need to learn from when it comes to creating foreign agent registries or registries of foreigners in Canada. One has to only think of the internment of Japanese citizens or Japanese Canadians or Italian Canadians during the past world wars to know that we must be very, very careful with these things. So yes, we are very much looking at how to give ourselves more tools, including a registry, to protect Canadians, our institutions, our businesses from foreign interference. But we have to make sure it's done in a way that doesn't further vulnerabilize or target communities that are already primarily and the first targets of foreign influence. The Chinese-Canadian community, for example, is always the first target of Chinese interference, whether it's the example of the police stations or misinformation and disinformation through various propaganda tools or other types of pressure. That's where the work that we're doing to consult with Canadians and make sure that as we move forward with more tools to keep us safer from interference, we are not adding to the pressures and the unacceptable challenges already faced by diaspora communities.
Thank you. Next question.
Hi, Prime Minister Tom Perry, CBC. Your government has decided to restore Hockey Canada's federal funding with conditions. I'm wondering why you didn't make one of those conditions requiring Hockey Canada to stop using non-disclosure agreements that silence victims in cases of sexual assault and abuse.
I will defer to the Minister on answering specific questions about the conditions, because I look at it as a parent. I have a son who was in hockey for a number of years, another who may well go into it, a daughter who I'm still trying to get to do more sports, and the need as parents to be confident that the institutions that are consuming so much of our kids' times and efforts and so much learning and so much that they get to acquire through institutions like and activities like playing hockey, we need to know that they're safe. We need to know that the mentality has changed, that the culture is being addressed. We put extremely clear expectations before Hockey Canada, before we would restore funding to them. They have indicated a real willingness to move forward on that, but we are going to continue to be extremely vigilant around ensuring that they continue to be worthy of the trust that millions of Canadians put in them as we encourage our kids to play sports, and specifically hockey.
On a different topic, the Conference of Defense Associations has issued a report, well, it's a letter from more than 50 ambassadors, former defense ministers, calling for Canada to increase defense spending, speed up defense spending, and really speed up procurement. I'm wondering what you think about this letter. Do you think they're being alarmist? Do you think they make some good points? And also, you've been in power for almost 8 years. Why does it still take so long for Canada to do any kind of military procurement?
Well, I'll take the example of the fighter jet procurement challenge. The previous government decided to cut all sorts of corners and make a predetermination on what they wanted to buy in terms of fighter jets. And we promised that we would put forward a proper process. If the previous government had actually embarked upon a proper, rigorous, nonpartisan, independent process, we would have been able to procure those 88 fighter jets much earlier in our government's tenure than just last year. So there are lessons there about doing things the right way to accelerate them. But in terms of process, in terms of investments, I can highlight whether it's from NORAD modernization that we announced historic amounts for over the past year, whether it's for the procurement of those 88 new fighter jets, whether it's on stepping up in Latvia, being engaged in significant ways around the world. Canada will continue to do its share and be there because the world is changing and it's getting more challenging in many ways, and the countries and the allies who want to see more and more of Canada are continuing to step up, as are we.
So are the people behind this letter, are they being alarmist then?
I think it is really important for people in various industries to advocate for their sectors and industries. As everyone knows, governments are challenged with a whole bunch of different priorities that we have to invest in and get the balance right on. We will continue to step up on military spending as we have and as we have demonstrated. But we're also going to be continuing to move forward and drawing in great investments to grow the economy. We're also going to be moving forward on things like childcare, which is down to $10 a day in 6 provinces and territories across the country already and will continue to be there. We're going to continue to move forward on providing dental care for Canadians who don't have insurance and can't afford it. We're going to continue to step up on fighting climate change and growing the economy. We're going to continue to step up on critical minerals and make sure that there are great jobs in the natural resources sector and in the transformation sector to continue to support the kinds of growing economy and research and innovations that's happening in the knowledge economy built on top of those. To govern is to choose, and the choices we're making are consistently about building the very best future for Canadians in every way, and that includes keeping people safe.
Thank you. Next question.
Okay. Au niveau de la défense, ça fait des années qu'on fait des investissements pour s'assurer la protection des Canadiens et l'équipement pour les forces armées canadiennes. Je veux souligner que c'était sous les conservateurs que la proportion des investissements en défense a chuté d'en dessous de 1% de notre PIB. Nous avons fait des investissements pour moderniser NORAD. Nous avons fait des investissements pour acheter 88 nouveaux avions de chasse. Nous allons continuer d'être là pour s'assurer de l'équipement et des ressources dont nos forces armées canadiennes ont besoin, dont nos alliés et nos partenaires à travers le monde ont besoin du Canada. Nous allons continuer aussi d'être responsables dans les choix qu'on est en train de faire pour bâtir un avenir plus fort et plus sécuritaire pour tous les Canadiens.
Thank you. Next question.
Kevin Gallagher, CTV National News. Prime Minister, with a potential public sector workers' strike looming on Wednesday for more than 150,000 workers, would you consider back-to-work legislation?
First of all, Kevin, on Friday, the questions people were asking me was, well, with a looming public service strike on Monday, are you worried about this? Now it's potentially Wednesday. Look, we're going to stay focused at the bargaining table. We're going to stay focused on putting forward reasonable, responsible offers to try and make sure that we're both recognizing and continuing to recognize the extraordinary work done by public servants, federal public servants across this country, while at the same time being responsible about the taxpayer investments and taxpayer funds that go to pay their salaries. Getting that balance right is something that we all want, but that happens not in negotiating in public. It happens when we sit down and roll up our sleeves at the bargaining table, as both sides are doing in good faith. Évidemment, je ne vais pas négocier sur la place publique, mais je peux dire qu'au niveau de la table de négociation, on est en train de travailler de façon ouverte et responsable pour y reconnaître les défis et le travail que font nos fonctionnaires fédéraux publics, fonctionnaires fédéraux, mais aussi s'assurer qu'on est responsable avec l'argent des contribuables quand vient le temps de négocier des futurs contrats. On progresse de façon responsable et on va continuer de négocier.
Next question.
Okay. We learned Friday, just before your chief of staff testified at committee, that you have been briefed on foreign interference 6 times since 2018. I realize that there are national security and intelligence things that you can't go into, as we learned from Katie Telford's testimony. However, we don't quite know what you're being briefed on in terms of, was it specifically Chinese interference? So could you perhaps elaborate if you were specifically being briefed on Chinese interference during those 6 formal briefings from 2018?
It shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone that I regularly get fully briefed on a range of threats and concerns and matters of interest that come from our security agencies and intelligence community. One of the fundamental jobs of any prime minister, of any government, is keeping its citizens safe. So I am fully apprised by my national security agencies of what their concerns are, what the issues are that I need to know about, and I can assure you that whenever and wherever it is appropriate, I always take action. But of course, when it comes to national security, we are extremely limited in what governments can say publicly, because talking about national security operations or even information can sometimes directly put at risk the people who are out there collecting that information and working to keep Canadians safe. And that's always been one of the challenges that has existed in democracies around the need to keep people safe in an open society and also have them reassured that we're following all the rules, that we're doing everything necessary to do that. And that's why most democracies work around that problem by creating a committee of parliamentarians of one way or another, of all different parties, who are fully briefed up, fully cleared to look into everything our security agencies do. But Canada, particularly under the previous Conservative government, refused to do that. They refused to bring in multi-party oversight over our national security agencies. Well, that was a commitment we made in 2015 that we would fix, and we brought in the National Security and Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians, so Canadians can know that our security institutions, and indeed our government, is being held to account by parliamentarians from all parties who get to see everything that is happening within our national security spheres. Now, for reasons that the Conservative Party will have to explain to you, they have not only resisted bringing in that oversight committee until 2015, but they continue to seek to politicize and undermine the work that it does, even though there are outstanding members of the Conservative Party who are there on that committee doing good work. Every open democracy will face the challenge of knowing, okay, there are some things we can't talk about publicly because it'll put our national security at risk, but Canadians need to know that we're doing it right, that we're being responsible, that we're doing everything necessary to keep them safe. And bringing in political parties of all different stripes, members of those political parties, to be able to look into it is one of the ways that if a report, as comes out regularly from NSICOP, this committee, says this is being done right, this area needs improvement, these are things that Canadians can be reassured about, this is something that needs to be tightened up, Canadians can know that we've found that way of both holding national security concerns appropriately and ensuring that we are being accountable as a government and as agencies for the work that we're doing.
Thank you. Next question.
Good morning, Prime Minister. Laura Osman, the Canadian Press. I want to pick up on your previous answer and ask if it's possible a public inquiry could put some of those questions to rest, given that your Chief of Staff testified many times that she can't discuss specifics she learned at the national security briefings.
That is exactly the task that we have put towards the Special Rapporteur, David Johnston, who will be looking at how the best way is to share with Canadians what is going on, what has been happened, how to make sure that we're doing everything necessary to counter foreign interference. This is exactly the question that, that this independent expert will be looking at.
Final question.
I also want to ask you if you would commit to having a foreign agent registry in place before the next election.
As we heard, we need to take on a range of tools, constantly improve our toolbox in terms of how we're protecting Canadians from foreign interference. At the same time, we need to make sure we're doing it in a way that doesn't further vulnerabilize, I don't even know if that's a word, but I'm going to keep using it. At the same time, we need to make sure we don't do things that further make vulnerable diaspora Canadians, communities that are always the first targets of foreign interference, specifically Iranian Canadians, Chinese Canadians, among others. That's why we are taking the time to consult appropriately on the foreign agent registry and making sure that we're using it in the right ways.
Thank
Merci.
you.